Mulan is a classic Disney movie that is universally loved by all, but what if I told you there exists a glaring plot hole that makes the entire movie pointless that no one has ever even noticed until today? Stick around until the end of the video, where I explain exactly what that plot hole is and why it may just change everything you thought you knew about Mulan. But before we get into all that, I want to thank you for watching my videos in the first place, and in case you didn't know, I'm Inviso Bill, and this is Medianalysis. Here we go. Our stories begin as all great stories do, with the Great Wall of China being scaled and attacked by the main antagonist, Shan Yu. Shortly after this, the general of the Chinese army meets with the emperor to discuss a plan of action to deal with the Huns that have invaded China's northern border. The general wishes to place units around the palace to protect the emperor, while the emperor says that he wants to use the military to protect his people instead. Keep this in mind, as it will be detail that becomes important later. After this, we meet our main character, Mulan, who uses this dog to spread chicken feed all over the path when she could have very easily taken 7 seconds to do that for just the chickens instead of wasting all that food on the ground. During this, Mulan's father, Fa Zhou, prays that Mulan will be able to impress the matchmaker and find someone to marry, a meeting to which she is already running late for, and her tardiness does not help her circumstances. While waiting for Mulan, her grandmother decides to walk through the middle of a busy street with this cricket in order to prove that it is a good luck cricket. Just for fun, I suppose. Side note, but how many times has she ran this little experiment in order to determine that a cricket is lucky? Because the way that she says, "this cricket is a lucky one," implies that there have been other crickets that aren't as lucky as this one cricket. As Mulan is in the process of getting all dolled up for the matchmaker, she cheats in this game of not Chinese checkers. While this is meant to show us how smart she is, it actually does the exact opposite, which I will explain later. Once Mulan finally does meet the matchmaker, a lot of bad things happen that aren't exactly her fault in regard to the chaos that ensues, except for speaking out of turn at the very beginning and the small spillage of tea on the table. But the tea thing was never addressed, so it doesn't really matter. After being humiliated by the matchmaker, Mulan returns home, feeling inadequate and unworthy, and, in classic Disney fashion, sings about her issues. Once her song is done, her father comes over and calls her a late bloomer, which I do find mildly amusing, given the fact that the matchmaker called her too skinny not even 2 minutes ago. An imperial eunuch, whose name I can't be bothered to remember, arrives in Mulan's province that he can draft one man from every family to fight in the war against the Huns. Mulan's father, being the only male in the family, is of course drafted, much to Mulan's dismay due to his current physical status, and also his prior history with the last war, in which he has already served in combat. Not wanting to have her handicapped father die, she steals his horse, his armor, and his draft letter while committing identity fraud and enlisting in the Chinese army. Upon realizing this, her father prays that a great guardian will watch over Mulan and keep her safe. And I'm not even saying this to be funny, but the exact opposite of that happens instead. The next day, Shan Yu and the Huns come across 2 imperial scouts, and Shan Yu lets them go. Well, one of them anyway. As for the other one, he was presumably shot by an arrow and was never seen again. What a way to go. After this, Mulan stumbles upon Mushu, the dragon, who explains why he is here and aims to help Mulan succeed. Once she arrives at the camp, she causes a mess at the food line while a newly promoted Captain Li Shang is going over war plans with his father, the general, who has instructed him to stay and train the troops until they are ready to join and defeat Shan Yu's forces. Side note, but I just love the fact that Mulan acted so impulsively without a plan that she didn't even come up with a fake name for her fake persona. There is a bit of charm in that on-the-spot thinking of hers in this moment where she is trying to read the room. Also, no way she was in the middle of that dogpile scuffle and didn't get a single scratch or speck of dirt on her clothes. Absolute bollocks. The next day, Mulan wakes up late, and after Yao is called out for his remarks toward Shang and fails to climb up a pole to retrieve the arrow, the most iconic song and training montage begins. However, the middle of the song is where the biggest plot hole in Mulan takes place that everyone seems to just ignore. But I'll get to that in the story and plot segment of the video, because once you see how big a plot hole this is, the entire story falls apart. But more on that later. Shan Yu finds a doll from a village in the mountains, and being the good Samaritan that he is, he and his army embark on a journey to return the doll to the girl. Later that night, after getting flashed by every man in camp, Mulan leaves the pawn and runs into the only man she hasn't seen naked yet. Mushu hatches a plan to get Mulan and the rest of her team into the forefront of the war that somehow works. As they head to the rendezvous point, they are shocked when they arrive and the village has been absolutely desecrated, which they should have been able to see from 200 meters away as opposed to 200 centimeters away, but whatever. Captain Shang is confused as to how this could have happened when there was no sign of his father who should have been there. The only issue is, he was there. General Li and his forces were all defeated by Shan Yu and the Han army, and they were never seen again. What a way to go. Filled with determination, Shang urges his men, and Ping, to press onward through the snowy mountains in order to stop the Huns from reaching the Imperial City. However, before they get there, Mushu sets off a rocket that gives away their position, and the Han army attacks them. Amidst the confusion and the conflict, Mulan aims a cannon at the face of the mountain and causes an avalanche. A bold move, yes, a calculated one too, but a somewhat useless one at that, as it did absolutely nothing to stop Shan Yu and only minorly inconvenienced him when she could have at least killed the enemy commander when he was about a meter away from her instead. Shortly after this, her identity is revealed, but they just leave her in the mountains where she, Mushu, and the cricket all admit to each other that they are all frauds in one way or another. Side note, but that means that the grandmother doing her test in the first act was pointless, as the cricket itself was never lucky to begin with, meaning she needs to either find a new cricket, or at the very least, come up with a better test to determine luck. Mulan heads to the Imperial City and tries to warn Shang about the remaining Huns and stop them from capturing the Emperor. It doesn't happen. Mulan comes up with a plan to get the Emperor to safety from Shan Yu before it's too late, and the soldiers with names help her execute that plan. This leads to a fight between Shang and Shan Yu that he ends up losing anyway. And now it's Mulan's turn to fight, and Shan Yu was fine with being outsmarted by Shang, who managed to keep the Emperor from him. He is a military leader, and the son of a general after all, so it makes sense, until Mulan reveals that she was the one who actually thwarted his plans, and now he's really mad. Not liking the idea of being bested by a mere woman, Shan Yu chases Mulan around the palace while Mushu obtains a fireworks rocket, and once Shan Yu was in position, they launched the rocket right at him, carrying him into a fireworks tower, causing them all to explode simultaneously. And he was never seen again. What a way to go. The Emperor then pardons Mulan of all of her crimes on account of saving his life and the lives of others before offering her a job. But she declines the job, as she does not want to be far from home any longer than she already has been, as she knows her family misses her greatly. So instead of giving her a job, he gives her the sword of Shan Yu and the crest of the Emperor, which she immediately gifts to her father after returning home, as gifts to honor her family. Shang arrives to speak with Mulan, and she invites him to dinner, hinting at a relationship that will be explored in another movie. In the end, Mulan reclaimed her family's honor, Mushu reclaimed his role of guardian, and they all lived happily ever after. Well, until Mushu learned the definition of the word coverture. And that's it. That's Mulan. There are a lot of things I want to talk about in regard to this movie, but as always, we'll start with Mulan's characters. What's great about Mulan in regard to this segment of the video is that most of the characters don't actually matter, so we can focus on the 4 that do. The first 3, Mulan, Shang, and Mushu, each represent being part of a group where they are seen as less than or not as competent. They're all underdogs, so they all work to prove themselves to those around them. Shang wants to prove himself to those who only think he got as far as he did, not because of his talent or his competency, but because of who his father is. Mulan wants to prove herself to the world that she is not just a problem, but instead someone who is worth being, and also prove to herself that she is indeed enough. And Mushu wants to prove himself to the ancestors that he can be a great guardian despite his previous shortcomings. One thing I like about Mulan is that she is always coming up with little plans to accomplish a goal. However, her thinking is never something that goes beyond the short term, as there are always issues in nearly every single plan she comes up with until the very end. Don't believe me? Let's run down the list of every idea Mulan has had in this movie. Writing on her arm to cheat on a test. Good plan on paper. Falls apart once water is added. Using her dog to help with chores. Good plan on paper. Falls apart as soon as the dog stops feeding the chickens and just runs wild all over the yard. She 100% could have also just taken the 10 seconds needed to pour the chicken feed on the ground as they were right next to the door, because it's not even a far walk, but whatever. Moving this piece in the game of Shang-Chi. 1. Yes, that is indeed the actual name of the game, and 2. Not only was this move useless, but it actually doesn't help the player who Mulan took over for. The way that this specific piece moves, as far as capture, is that it captures an enemy piece by skipping over one piece and taking another behind it. There is nothing to take here, which means that this was a useless move. The worst part is, the player who should have moved instead of Mulan was already winning due to the amount of pieces on each player's side. Mulan actually put him in a worse position than if she just left the game alone. Fanning the flames. This one is self-explanatory as to why it went up in smoke. Running away from home to take her father's place. She didn't even come up with a name until she was put on the spot. Retrieving the arrow. This plan actually worked, so I'll give her that one. Taking a bath assuming no other men would be in the area. Every man who is not Shang joins not even 23 seconds after she gets in the water. Using the cannon to defeat Shan Yu and the Huns with the avalanche. Not only was the main threat not defeated, but she and Shang both came closer to dying than Shan Yu did due to her own plan. Trying to tell Shang about the Huns in the city, ignored outright. Scaling the palace to stop Shan Yu. It works, so I'll give her that. The final push against Shan Yu where he gets blown up. It also works, so she gets a point for that too. As far as her track record is concerned, Mulan's ideas have a 27% success rate of actually being beneficial in a short-term lens, and some of her ideas don't even work within the short term either. But that's great, as she was never meant to be some type of prodigy who could do no wrong and had no flaws, because if she was, then that would be really boring. And why would anyone spend $200 million or 191 million euros to make something that awful? However, I bring this up to say that Mulan is not perfect, and sometimes the way she goes about things actually creates more problems than the ones that she solves. Remember, she has a 73% failure rate when it comes to her ability to conjure useful plans. It really is no wonder why her environment sees her as a screw-up and even dishonorable at times. It makes you actually want to root for her to win, to finally get something right for once. And it's all the more satisfying when she, Mushu, and Shang eventually do accomplish what they set out to do. Shan Yu is unironically my favorite character in this movie. Everything he does demonstrates the sheer presence of his character and the gravity of the situation. An issue I had halfway through this movie is that they never show Mulan actually getting physically injured in combat, despite every other man showing scuff marks, a bruise, or something along those lines. But Shan Yu manages to seriously wound Mulan during their battle in the mountains. It was so shocking to me that it actually made up for all the times that Mulan was left unharmed, because now she was face to face with a real threat. And I loved that. His mannerisms and overall stoic yet sardonic nature are also things that I love about his character. Keep in mind that he had his bird deliver this doll to him, only for him to, albeit off screen, march into the village that she was in, kill the general of the Chinese army, and then give the girl back to the doll, just to eventually kill her too. Which brings me to my main and only gripe with Shan Yu. I love pettiness, but it has to be something that is productive or makes sense. His entire motivation for even invading China is because the Great Wall of China exists. And that's it. That's not even petty, it's just asinine. And it's not even one of those so bad it's good things. It's just an objectively stupid reason to be a villain. At least in the 2020 version, which is the only compliment I will ever give this movie, they had the main villain's motive be that the Emperor killed his dad in the last war. But this wall motivation nonsense is laughably stupid. Absolute bollocks. All of the minor characters were great in their roles though. Easy 4.5 out of 5. Story and plot. So, remember when I said in the very beginning that Mulan is a pointless movie? Instead of explaining the entire plot, I'm just going to give you the plot hole that makes this entire movie pointless, and it all starts with the most iconic song in the movie. During the middle of Make a Man Out of You, the exact words of Captain Li Shang to Mulan are, "Pack up, go home, you're through." And it's not because Mulan is a woman, as he didn't even know that yet, but because she was the only one who was constantly falling behind during their training until she grabbed the arrow. Which means that if Fa Zhao were to go into camp and Shang saw that he also couldn't do the same things as the younger and more capable men, he would have said the exact same thing to Fa Zhao. Ergo, there was no reason Mulan had to even go in the first place. Let's entertain this for a bit though. What would happen if Mulan never came and Fa Zhao did? There are two different ways to see it. First of all, Fa Zhao gets booted even quicker than Mulan did, as he is even more physically incapable than she was. And, since the former half of the training montage was showing how Mulan is a detriment to the team, with her gone, they may have actually gotten more training done, and then after showing development, would have joined the general at the mountain village and crushed the Huns together. Or, if they don't make it in time, and the general still dies, then they are able to go through the mountains without having their position given away, so that way they can warn the emperor and better prepare for the battle at the imperial city, where they would win regardless. In the second version of this hypothetical, the newly promoted Captain Shang and the senior officer General Li would meet Fa Zhao. Since they are familiar with his legendary military history, General Li will appoint him as an advisor to Captain Shang to help him be a more effective leader, and also to make sure that the troops are more than meeting the standard. With the help of the veteran Fa Zhao, Shang is able to become an even greater leader, and the troops are able to be trained to efficiency even faster than expected, so they move out and rendezvous with the general in the mountain village. The combined military insight of Fa Zhao, General Li, and now a better advised Captain Li Shang, who had the tutelage of Fa Zhao, effortlessly defeat the Huns in the mountains, and the movie ends here. It really doesn't matter what way you slice it. Mulan's involvement became its own plot hole by the movie's own logic, just with those simple lyrics that everyone seems to ignore for some reason. Pack up, go home, you're through. That's it. The end. She never needed to be there, and any version of the story you look at would show them winning, regardless of whether or not she is even there. In fact, I would even go as far to state that if Fa Zhao were there and acted as a counsel to Shang, the movie is over in half its runtime. This is the reason I say that Mulan is a pointless movie, because she ultimately becomes a non-factor in the success of the war effort. The story itself is fine, and the message is great, but the plot falls apart once you realize that if Mulan never showed up, conflict is resolved in about the same amount of time, or even twice as fast, compared to as if she did show up. Better yet, if the Emperor were to listen to what General Li said at the start of the movie, and concentrate forces by the palace and the Imperial City, the movie would have ended at the 2-minute and 37-second mark. In case you didn't notice, Shan Yu only attacked areas that had Imperial soldiers. He was going to leave that village in the mountains alone, until he realized that there were Imperial soldiers there. So if the Emperor had taken the General's advice, this movie's runtime gets cut down by a little over 97%, which is crazy to think about, honestly. Also, did Bushu just outright kill the Great Stone Dragon? Why is that never talked about again? Wouldn't that cost him his role as Guardian that he worked so hard to get? Not even just the Mulan thing, but so many little details where if you actually stop and think about it for a few seconds, you realize how half-baked some of it is. Like the game of Shang-Chi, where it seems like Mulan made a smart move, but if you actually know how to play the game, you realize that it was not as good a move as the movie makes you think it is. And as a chess player, I can confidently state that this guy didn't get upset that Mulan made a genius move, because she didn't. He got upset because someone who doesn't know what they were doing broke the flow of the game by randomly touching and moving the pieces on the board. Also, the soldiers didn't need to dress and drag in order to climb the pillars. 1. Shang does it with no issue and no costume, and 2. The disguises made zero difference in how easily they were able to defeat the Huns guarding the door. Story is great, the plot, not so much. 2.75 for me. rewatchability, and recommendability. Do I even need to explain this one? This movie was so good that they made a sequel that wasn't as good. And then they circled back in 20 years to make a live-action remake that just wasn't good at all. But you know, it's the thought that counts. Fun fact, but I actually watched both of these before I even saw the original Mulan from 1999 for the first time. And I'm telling you that this movie is just so much fun that it should almost be a crime that they turned this movie into a god-awful mess. I hate that movie so much. This one is great though. And this one is only memorable because I grew up on it. If not for that, I wouldn't even know it existed. By the way, Mulan's not a Disney princess because she's not an actual princess. Don't at me. I don't make the rules for monarchies. I just follow them. I don't care what you say. You're wrong. This is a 3.75 for me. And lastly, the finale. A finale can either make or break your piece of media. So let's see how Mulan's ending holds up. The ending of Mulan is that her and everyone else who had something to prove eventually proved themselves to those who doubted them over the course of the movie. I like the fact that things of consequence actually took place, like Shang's dad dying in battle. We got to see how that affected him and his drive going forward. I still want to know what happened to the Great Stone Dragon and if Mushu actually killed the most powerful guardian in the Fa family completely by accident. But I guess some things are just never going to be explained. It's a 4.25 for me. I don't think I need to really elaborate on this one. It's pretty clear as to why. All of these scores together give Mulan a final average of 3.75 stars out of 5. Definitely a memorable movie that has more than earned its spot as a Disney classic. I had a fun time watching this movie again for this video, and even though I had this opinion of Mulan for a while, it doesn't ruin the overall experience for me, as I still think it's a great story. But I thought you all might want to hear what I had to say. And before you get mad, remember that I still like this movie too, even though its MC is technically pointless and should have ended less than 3 minutes in. Cars is a movie that suffers from this exact same problem, and I still love that movie too. But at the end of the day, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you want to see more Medianalysis, you can click on the playlist on the right. Or if you just want to see my most recent video, you can check out this video on the left. However, that's where I'm going to leave off for now. Thank you for staying until the end of the video, and a big thank you to all 1,373 people who bought tickets to the Inviso Bill show. Tell me what you thought about this video, and what you want to see me talk about next time. But, until that next time arrives, I'm Inviso Bill, and that's all for my spill. Like, comment, hit subscribe. You'll never know when, but I'll see you next time.